What are we supposed to do about it?
Let's talk about it, y'all.
Middle America.
What are you people?
We're Americans.
Good evening. We are Americans indeed. I am Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Middle America. We're not left wing. We're not right wing. We're just...
right down the middle.
No.
Where truth is.
No. We're just right. You always have to go in...
What do you want me to do?
We're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. That's how it's supposed to go.
It just sounded so arrogant, so I wanted to say we're on the side of truth.
If Michael Jordan says that he's the second greatest basketball player of all time, he's not being arrogant. He's being truthful. We continue.
No.
This is Middle America, ladies and gentlemen.
He's not the second greatest. He's the best.
This is, excuse my wife and her obviously obvious ignorance when it comes to basketball. But we're not here to talk about basketball.
No, we're not.
We're here to talk
no
about
one
of the almost prophetic members of our country by the name of Tucker Carlson. Sweets, do me a favor and go a little bit closer to the mic. This is Tucker Carlson, and he is warning us about something very significant, and you would do well to pay attention because you're not going to get this on CNN.
Dun, dun, dun. Huh? I need to be in control of that button.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson.
What's up, Tucker?
I want to hear an amazing story. It has the benefit of being both true and illuminating.
Let's do it, bro.
In 1851, a man called Samuel Cartwright came up with a fairly sophisticated scientific explanation for why so many slaves were running away from plantations in the American South. These fugitive slaves, Cartwright explained, were suffering from a medical disorder. It was called drapetomania. It was a syndrome characterized by an uncontrollable or insane impulsion to wander.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the problem. It wasn't they disliked being enslaved or yearned for freedom and basic humanity. No. The problem, according to Samuel Cartwright, was that black people as a group were inherently defective. They were drapetomaniacs. They were always running away. That's what he said. 107 years later, it is embarrassing to repeat something this stupid out loud. It's so obviously insane. But here's what you should know. Drapetomania was taken very seriously at the time, and so was Samuel Cartwright. Cartwright was not a fringe character at all. He was a nationally prominent physician, a former high-ranking Army officer from Fairfax, Virginia. He went to Penn Medical School. Samuel Cartwright was a credentialed man of science who commanded the respect of the country. 50 years after the Civil War, one of this nation's leading medical dictionaries continued to maintain an entry for drapetomania.
No way.
Yeah, that's an entire discipline. That whole field, it's been called like scientific racism is the technical term for it.
Yeah.
And there have been some really interesting. I'm gonna post this to back up Tucker, because you know how we get down over here. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, a German scientist, coined the term Caucasian in 1795 to describe the variety of mankind that originated on the southern slopes of the Mount Caucasus along Europe's eastern border. He claimed it was the original race and therefore the most beautiful. Of course, now we know that the original man came from Africa and that all men derive from the African man and that the African man derives from God. That's just science and a little bit of theology. Samuel George Morton, which I believe Mr. Carlson just talked about, an American anthropologist, theorized in the mid-1800s that intelligence is linked to brain size after measuring a vast number of skulls from around the world. He concluded that whites have larger skulls than other races and are therefore superior. The work of important scientists like Samuel Morton gave racism legitimacy. Journalists, teachers, and preachers began to popularize their findings. A lot of you don't know that. A lot of my atheist friends don't know that. You think that those preachers in the pulpits, they were just opening up to Leviticus and Ephesians, not realizing that their congregations, knowing what Leviticus and Ephesians were saying, were still criticizing their preacher for having slaves. And so they retorted by appealing not to the Bible, but to the scientists. Because it says in Acts 17, from one man, God made all nation of men. Mm-hmm. And so people were saying, well, if God made all nation of men from one man, how could we say that we're superior?
Right.
And it was the scientists who gave the preachers the ammunition to say, I know they look like us, but scientifically speaking, they're not.
Wow.
So when it says all nations of men, they're talking about white men. Because these guys are not men the way that we are. It's scientifically proven. Stop being so emotional. Yeah. Yeah. The work of important scientists like Samuel Morton gave racism legitimacy. We already talked about that. Says historian Reginald Horseman, who studied the leading publications of the time, notes, one did not have to read the obscure books to know that the Caucasians were innately superior and that they were responsible for civilization in the world, or to know that inferior races were destined to be overwhelmed or even to disappear.
Oh my gosh.
So the scientific community, so drapetomania was one of them, and there was another mania that they attached to white people who wanted to free the slaves.
You're kidding me.
Oh yeah. That was also a mental illness, and they were basically saying these people are just so obsessed with this issue like it's the only issue in the world.
Wow.
Very much like people criticize us with abortion.
Yeah.
That's because it is the only issue in the world.
Wow.
There are no issues if you don't allow a person to live. But we continue. It's not working for us. Just follow me. Okay. So, look, they had a white Jesus. I'm not mad at white Jesus. A lot of people are. I'm not mad at white Jesus. I posted a picture. It was like a picture from the 1800s in China, and it showed a Chinese Jesus. Okay, I've seen black. Like I understand the white Jesus thing. I get it. It's okay. It's all right. But the scientific justification for slavery was there. So I appreciate Tucker, because that is not something that any old slouch is familiar with.
Yeah.
Especially on the right. So shout out to Tucker Carlson. This is a guy you can trust. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. Bless God.
In retrospect, of course, we would call Samuel Cartwright a bigot, which he undoubtedly was. But he was also more than that. Cartwright was a practitioner of something called scientific racism. Scientific racism is deeper than simple prejudice. It is the use of science to justify the dominance of one group over another group.
Whoa! Tucker knows what he's talking about. He ain't no slouch. He's very familiar with American history.
Exactly what we do with abortion. What we do with abortion.
Yeah,
We
but
use science to.
yeah, you need a scientific justification in a secular
Yeah,
world.
people are always like, oh, it's a clump of cells. Like,
Yeah. Newsflash: you are also just a clump of cells.
Surprise.
That's like one of the worst arguments of all time. It's literally one of the worst arguments I've ever heard in my entire life. You're a clump of cells. We continue.
Scientific racism has a history as long as science, simply because the impulse to dominate is inherent to human nature. So it's not really about color, though it's called racism. Instead, it's about power. Martin Luther King wrote eloquently about this. So did Dr. Seuss, by the way.
Martin Luther King wrote eloquently about this. You know what I love? I love when white people on the right trot out the cadaver of Dr. King to kind of put out to everybody, hey, Negroes, here's an example of a Negro that you need to follow.
I know.
As if Tucker Carlson wouldn't be blasting Dr. King if he was around in the 60s. You know how I know that Tucker would have blasted Dr. King? Here you go. Here's a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you are raising questions about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask the question, you begin to question the capitalist economy, end quote. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was extremely friendly to Marx and said way more things about Marx and Marxism than the two girls in BLM. And we saw how Tucker treated the girls in BLM for saying anything positive about Marx. So what do you think he would have said about MLK in the 60s?
Yeah, but don't they usually do that where if somebody quotes anything that could be relatively Marxist, then they say, oh, they're a Marxist.
Correct.
So Tucker is?
There's Clinton. Marxism is the main issue. Okay, Clinton, Marxism is the main issue. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you see right there where Tucker trots out the cadaver of Martin Luther King and then quotes Dr. King favorably as if he wouldn't have been vociferously against Dr. King, because literally the same template that the FBI and the racist government used to destroy Dr. King, which is label him a Marxist, label him as a person who hates America, and label him as a person who's responsible for riots, which white people did all three of those things. Not all white people, by the way, because there are a bunch of white people that put their lives on the line to march next to Dr. King. So we're not talking about all white people. We're talking about the people who understood that if MLK got what he was asking for, it would be a lot more difficult to maintain a power position. We continue.
I want to take a look at what they wrote, assuming you can still buy their books. The point is, scientific racism never actually went away. It's still with us. No one talks about drapetomania anymore. Instead, our medical professionals and law professors and military leaders and politicians and cable news hosts have identified a new disorder they claim explains everything bad. It's called whiteness. In the universities, it has become an article of faith that were it not for the indelible stain of whiteness, America could be a utopia. Only whiteness stands in the way. That's why we must abolish it. As Harvard Magazine put it, abolish the white race. Only then can we be happy.
Whoa. Abolish the right race. Only then can. That's a terribly racist thing to say. And if those folks are saying that, then forget them. What we need to do now is talk about the concept of critical race theory. Because I think if we talk about critical race theory and what it actually is, then maybe it'll give us context for the statement we need to abolish whiteness. As Sentinel Justice is saying, just kill them? Well, the way that Tucker just said it, it sounds
exactly
like
what
those
it
folks
sounds
are
like.
saying, just kill all white people.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I was talking to a friend, he brought up critical race theory. He tried to make an analogy between critical race theory and George Floyd and KKK, stuff like that. And a lot of people do. Here we go. What's interesting is a lot of these people won't even take the time to know what critical race theory is. So here's what critical race theorists believe. This is Encyclopedia Britannica. Here's what critical race theorists believe, ladies and gentlemen. Please read that.
Critical race theory, intellectual movement and loosely organized framework of legal analysis based on the premise. Sorry, that I think
it's
I'm
too
gonna
small.
Need glasses very soon. That race is not a natural, biologically grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups of human beings, but a socially constructed, culturally invented category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theorists hold that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans.
Okay, please note, ladies and gentlemen, critical race theorists do not believe that race truly exists. They believe that it was an invented social structure by white people in order to stratify our country and maintain white supremacy. Tucker, they don't even believe that race exists. Here is DJ Deadstroke. CRT is bullshit, all caps. It's left-wing racist crap. DJ Deadstroke, they don't even believe race exists. This is... He did it right after I did.
I know. Well, maybe he clicked it before you started talking about it.
Right, because there's a time delay.
Right.
Okay, I'm not mad. Don't be mad at me, DJ Deathstroke. I wasn't trying to be funny, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, people who hold to CRT do not believe that race is an actual real category. As a matter of fact, and now here's Veneto Award. Saying that there's no difference between races is just stupid in my opinion. Explain how good blacks play basketball. Okay? Now watch this. Watch this. So there's what the critical race theorists believe. Now here is the Smithsonian. Okay? I know it's not as, credentialed as Tucker Carlson. This is the Smithsonian. Here's what they say. Rather than distinct races, groupings, or borders, the continually mixing populations produced only gradients with some traits slightly more common in some regions than others. Lighter skin in northern climates emerged late. Some Britons were shocked to learn that the Cheddar Man, the remains of a man who lived in southwest England almost 10,000 years ago, would today have been considered black. It's because we're your fathers. In the 1950s, geneticists began to confirm that some archaeologists had already surmised, namely, individual variation within population groups overlapping with other population groups turned out to be so large that the boundaries of race made less and less sense. This is the 1950s.
Wow.
The conclusion was that no pure race exists and that are distinct and different from others. Despite this evidence, those eugenicists... This is not a critical race theorist saying this. This is a scientist at the Smithsonian. You know who believed in race at the time? Eugenists. And prior to them, it was a scientific racist. I'm talking about at the academic level now. Despite this evidence, those eugenicists still practicing sought to prevent their supposedly superior race from being overrun by immigration, miscegenation, and higher birth rates among other ethnicities, which is obviously a concern for almost all of the right-wingers before. Okay, so here's what CRT adherents state. They say there's no such thing as race. Race is an artificially constructed social construct that is used to stratify our society. As Doug brilliantly says, it's not about race, it's about power. Correct, because race doesn't exist, but it's a way to keep European people and their descendants superior to African people and their descendants. So in a critical race theorist ideology, what they're saying is, the term white is code for superiority and the term black is code for inferiority, which is why you kind of feel funny when you say that black guy over there, but you don't feel any way when you say that Jamaican guy over there. Because for a critical race theorist, these terms are codes for superiority or inferiority. They don't believe that the white race exists. They believe that whiteness is simply a code that Europeans created so that they could have dominance over resources and opportunity in this country. Whether or not you agree with them, can't you represent them honestly, Tucker? Considering the fact that you just told us about all these people that none of you people in your audience know and 95% of America didn't know existed in the first place. If you could do that kind of research, Tucker, why not tell your constituency? Exactly. Why not tell them what critical race theorists actually believe? Unbelievable. White people...
He's always trying to make white men out to be victims.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's like...
White people can also not be considered a distinct and unique genetic group, let alone a different race. White people or Europeans are a mix of various Western, Eurasian, and genetic groups. Correct, as Perkinath says. But here's Tucker, and I want you to understand something. If you're a fan of Tucker Carlson, that's how little he thinks of you.
Yeah,
this is not an insult to me, because he's not talking to me. He's talking to you. And he's assuming that you are too dumb to do a simple Google search. And he wants you to remain dumb. I'll explain that to you in a second. I'll say it to you again. And now, look, DJ, how about you deal with the fact? How about you deal with the facts, DJ? Your man Tucker Carlson just completely misrepresented CRT. And by the way...
Yeah, and he doesn't show us where to get that information either.
Or
show clips up on the screen.
He's not going to source... I mean, people,
right, because he doesn't want people to do the research to see that he's lying.
Now, what about this abolish whiteness thing? What about that thing that he quoted in the Harvard Review, abolish whiteness? I mean, he quoted it, and it literally, that's the name of the article. Now, some of you already know what they mean by the definition I just gave you. But I'm going to quote the article that Tucker quoted when it said abolish whiteness. I'm going to quote the article.
Oh, boy.
Unbelievable. Here is the actual article that says abolish whiteness. Okay? We expected bewilderment from people who still think of race as biology. because they don't believe in the biological distinction of race. But they're saying white people who still believe that race is a thing are coming after us. What are they saying? We frequently get letters accusing us of being racist, just like the KKK, or even being called a hate group. Our standard response is to draw an analogy with anti-royalism. To oppose monarchy does not mean killing the king. It means getting rid of crowns, thrones, royal titles, etc.
Oh, that's a good way to explain it.
Tucker.
Well, how come you didn't read that, Tucker?
Why didn't you read that to your audience?
Wow.
You quoted the title. You quoted the title of the article. Why didn't you read that? Don't you think that would have a salient point as far as interpreting what they meant by saying, can we abolish whiteness? Now look at Clinton. Clinton says, what if we say abolish blackness? Yes, we should abolish blackness, because blackness is a societal code for inferiority. So this is what happens when you don't listen to your interlocutor.
Yeah.
That's why you run into a Nation of Islam person, they'll say the so-called white man and the so-called black man. But you guys are so used to not listening to the opposition, you ask questions like this and you really think that it's a gotcha question, when in reality, it goes right along with the theory. Mm-hmm. We don't believe in blackness if you hold to CRT, and we don't believe in whiteness. These are codes that are used to stratify our society. Please, Clinton, when you engage the topic, and I'm glad for your participation, but when you engage, please listen to the people that you're disagreeing with. Wow. Here comes Tucker Carlson.
It's hard to listen to the person that's coming with different information if you already have stuff set in your head and you already have a sort of victim mentality. So it kind of keeps you in a place where, you know, you're just defending yourself. And in defending yourself, you're not really listening because you're just thinking of how you're going to defend the next thing the person says. Mm-hmm. But you really have to just pull back and just try to take the information as a bunch of pieces and then look at them after. Like, put your puzzle together and then see what type of picture you come out with at the end.
Correct. And then here's Ripple. Ripple, after hearing the facts, says, well, I guess I've always been a critical race theorist without knowing what CRT was. Exactly. Most of us are like this. Most of us say, well, there really isn't any real distinction between black people and white people as far as on the genetic level. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't have the terminology for it, but that's what it is. We continue.
Lots of people seem to believe this. They're not all bad people, just as not everyone who believed in Samuel Cartwright in the 1850s was evil.
You see? So he quotes this thing out of context. He assumes that his constituency are so dumb, they're not going to look at it. So now he's setting fire to a straw man. Oh, these people that hold the CRT, they're not evil, they're just dumb. Unbelievable. It is amazing. We continue. Wow.
Some people are just gullible. They're looking for meaning in their lives. If you hand them a unified theory of everything, some percentage of them are going to buy it wholesale.
And that is the premise of his entire show.
Wow.
That's the premise of his entire show. I'm going to show you later. That's the premise of his entire show. He knows. He knows. You don't think that he read the totality of that article? How did he know about scientific racism and the specific players? Yeah. You got to do specific research for that to happen, ladies and gentlemen. But so he knew what that article said and purposely left it out, and he just explained to you why. He just explained to you why. Because he knows the psychological makeup of his audience. Now, I would be insulted. If I was one of those folks, I would be mega insulted.
Yeah, well, I just don't know how you can be insulted when, for the most part, the people that I know, it's true. They don't look into what these people say. They just take it.
There were nice people at Jonestown in Guyana. They just didn't know any better. It's their leaders that you wonder about. They do know better, or they should.
I agree.
And when they talk about this new iteration of scientific racism, when they talk about whiteness...
You see the lie? Scientific racism came out of science. Critical race theory came from lawyers. It's not a scientific assumption. It's an assumption about the legal system. Mm-hmm. It's a completely separate discipline. But does Tucker feel that he has got to add any sort of nuance to this? Nope. It's all just one big thing. You mean like the unified theory of everything for your gullible audience? Holy moly.
They sound very much like old-fashioned bigots. Take this guy, for example. His name is Eric Michael Dyson.
It's actually Michael Eric Dyson. But Tucker has no respect for black people, so, he can't even get his name right. If you're black and you're a Tucker Carlson fan, I say it all the time. He doesn't respect you, and nor should he.
Tenured professor at some stupid college or other. He lives in a rich, almost exclusively white neighborhood. He goes on television.
He's a tenured professor at some stupid college or something.
Did you notice when he was talking about that first guy, Samuel?
Yeah.
When he said the name of that guy's college, which was something I've never heard of.
Yep.
But he said it like, I don't know. Let's say it was a YouTube college, because I can't think of anything right now. He was like, he went to YouTube college. Like, he said it like it was like,
oh yeah,
whoa,
oh yeah,
Harvard.
oh yeah. It's
but
George.
I was like, I don't know where
it's Georgetown University is where he's a professor.
This
Michael
guy?
Eric Dyson, yeah, and it's a majority black school, so just some stupid school.
Okay. So which school was more important, this guy's school or Samuel's school? Because remember, he listed off Samuel's school like it was some big deal.
I mean,
it's just clear what he's doing. That's what I'm saying.
The guy that Tucker quoted. See, here's the thing about science. So yeah, it was a racist thing, right? But at the same time, in science, you're supposed to put every hypothesis and theory on the table.
Yeah.
And then experiment the hell out of it, observe the hell out of it. So I'm not like. And the guy was a person of his time. A fish doesn't know his wet. It's inundated with racism, so there are a bunch of assumptions that he took into the scientific endeavor, right? Mm-hmm. So I understand that. I understand where that guy is coming from. But the real devious person here is Tucker, because he knows all the information and he's purposely withholding it back.
No, I get that. What I'm saying is that when Tucker was explaining that Samuel guy, and he talked about, now he wants to use Samuel as part of his argument.
Right.
So when he does, and he talks about Samuel's schooling, he talks about how he went to, and it was like the way he says the name of his school was like Harvard, but it was a school I've never heard of.
Well, yeah.
And then when he talks about this guy, which he doesn't want us agreeing with, he calls it some stupid college.
Yeah, Tucker's,
See what I'm saying? He leads them by saying
100%.
If he says some stupid college but doesn't name the college, I don't know, that's just weird.
Well, it's not a college, it's a university. Yeah. And here's Clinton. If there are no whites, then there's no white privilege. Clinton, white privilege is once people accept the false notion that there is such a thing as race, then white people get privileged, as we have just demonstrated by the fact that it took almost a year to convict the murderer of George Floyd, when you know if the situation would have been reversed, it wouldn't have taken a year trial, and there would have been no trial because George Floyd would have been executed on the side of the street. You know that, I know that. But instead of dealing with the issue, because this is obviously new information for Clint, and I'm good with that, bro, because we're all growing. That's okay. But instead of taking in the new information and saying, well, I got to sit back and think this through, he comes back and throws out this nonsense. Unbelievable. We continue.
A lot. Watch him as he talks about race and ask yourself honestly if he sounds any different at all from, say, Bull Connor or David Duke. He doesn't. Only the colors have changed. Here he is.
And speaking about, the maggots. I'm sorry, the MAGA.
Okay.
Did you do that on purpose?
We got to stop right there. We got to address that.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, he did that on purpose. That's not good.
Well, you know when somebody says something behind closed doors?
That's bad. That's really bad. Go ahead.
You know when somebody says something so much behind closed doors? Like, for instance, like,
no,
it's
he
not
did that
okay.
on purpose.
Oh, he did?
He did that on purpose.
How
Guaranteed.
can you know that?
Because
either way, he's been saying it.
I've watched hours and hours of this guy.
Yeah?
He's a very erudite thinker.
Oh.
He doesn't make mistakes like that.
Yikes.
He did that shit on purpose. He called those... I'm sorry. Those are human beings creating the image of God, and you call them maggots. Maggots are only good to be destroyed.
Yeah, they just feed off the dead.
We have got to get that kind of language out of our vocabulary. We do not get to call our political enemies subhumans.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that.
Even especially in this type of an argument.
I don't care. And here's the thing. Listen, racism is one of the most common and ubiquitous sins. Okay, Peter, after walking with Jesus and seeing all the miracles in the resurrection, still fell into it in the book of Galatians, and Paul had to get at him to his face.
Yep.
Racism is something that all of us probably struggle with. or don't. So this whole thing where you get to go and say, oh, the MAGA maggots, that's not good. You cannot do that. That's wrong. Mm-hmm. And you don't listen. This I see this all the time on the left, race issues, whatever, black, whatever. I don't care what you want to call them. That just because you, and this is another reason why I was so against what the media was doing with Trump last year, trying to make it sound like he was the Antichrist or that he was a Hitler, mm-hmm. because we've somehow completely dehumanized the German people to the point where they're like some special species of demon. Mm-hmm. And so if you can convince society that Trump is Hitler, then anybody who supports him is a subhuman Nazi just like him, and then you get the green light to go on these giant programs and call the people that voted for him maggots. No, Mr. Dyson. There's a lot of people over there in the Rust Belt, Mr. Dyson, that don't have tenured professorships over at universities and are big famous people like you with millions of dollars in their bank account that were absolutely wrecked and ruined and abandoned by the Democratic Party. And then Trump flew in there while Hillary was saying we're going to get rid of coal. Trump said we're going to bring coal back and we're going to give jobs in America to a group of very desperate people. Mm-hmm. So you go ahead and characterize those people as subhuman maggots all you want. It's not right. You can't do that to people. I don't care how wrong Tucker is or any of them. Mm-hmm. That's dangerous. Mm-hmm. That's dangerous. You could get people hurt that way. We saw it last year. Good God. Mm-hmm. Man. Look, if you don't believe in God, okay. I just don't know how you think we're going to make it.
Good evening and welcome to
We got people like Tucker Carlson and all these other people in the world. We're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. And then look at the person just like smiling.
That you
just she's smiling as he calls these people MAGA people. So wrong.
Here he is.
And speaking about, the maggots, I'm sorry, the MAGA. That is so corrosive.
And to Clinton's point...
Who was smiling? What are you talking about?
I'll show you in a second. And to Clinton's point, all types have joined the MAGA movement. He's right. There's a giant Puerto Rican, Hispanic MAGA contingency. There's a very big black MAGA contingency. So Clinton's also right about that. I don't think it's just as diverse as the left, but it might be after two more years of Biden. But watch how she reacts to him.
In this, political moment. And we have stood by to see mediocre, mealy-mouthed, snowflake white men who are incapable of taking critique, who are willing to dole out infamous repudiations of the humanity of the other, and yet...
Yeah, but you just did the same thing.
Right.
What do you mean infamous repudiations of the humanity of the other? You just called them maggots, mister! And look at the blindness. He doesn't even see his own hypocrisy. Look at these people. This is why I told you. I told you guys yesterday. The white liberal who will never call you out and will co-sign this evil BS and will never tell you when you're being inconsistent and will always let you be as bitter and angry at white people as possible and spew out as much invective as possible. They're not your friend. Mm-hmm. These are the people that were telling us to vote for Joe Biden. Michael, mm-hmm. How about you? Hey, Michael, who has done more actual damage to the black experience in America? Donald Trump in 4 years or Joe Biden in 40? Who's done more damage?
Joe Biden all the way.
Just silly self. Don't you know you're just going along? All you're doing is strengthening Biden's base, who's worse for us than Trump. But now, see, we can't think now.
These people are on the same team as him?
They're all on the same team. Yeah.
They look like
this is MSNBC.
They look like they weren't taking him seriously, though.
Oh, no, they're smiling. That's Michael Eric Dyson. You have to...
They call us snowflakes, and they are the biggest flakes of snow to hit the earth. They are incapable of criticism. They are incapable of tolerating difference.
Okay. That's actually stereotypically true to a degree, though. The softest people in America right now are these Fox News watching people who can't deal with any sort of... These are the people who, when our gay friends were trying to get cakes baked and people were saying, look, I can't do that because of my convictions, they were saying, well, then go to another store. Cool. But then when Twitter, which is a privately owned company, said, "Okay, we don't want Trump on our platform because it doesn't reflect our ideals." Oh, you're persecuting me! This is terrible! Free speech! Blah 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 blah. There's a whole demographic of people in this country, honestly, who are extremely fragile, extremely fragile, and are so used to being in a privileged position that they interpret the loss of privilege as persecution.
Oh yeah.
And they'll kill you for it. Go read the manifesto of the El Paso shooter. He's right about that. We got a serious problem in America with that demographic for sure.
Scared of, oh my God, critical race theory is going to kill your mother, and they don't even know. They're not critical. They have no race, and they don't understand theory.
Okay, well, he's right about that. They're not critical, as in you have to actually employ the mind that God gave you. And they have no race because Michael Eric Dyson holds the critical race theory, so there is no race because there's no such thing. You see? But terrible, terrible showing by Michael Eric Dyson. And I'm warning you, black people, I'm telling you, you allow yourself to get angrier and angrier and angrier to the point where you enjoy hearing stuff like that. These people are maggots and all that stuff. I'm telling you, it's going to destroy you. Don't be like that. Don't be like Tucker either.
Yep.
Now here's DJ. Scholars can rip CRT apart easy. Then do it, Doug. If it's so easy. Doug, did you know that CRT scholars don't even believe race is a construct? Why have you been telling me for the last 3 weeks that CRT is a racist ideology? Why'd you say that? They don't even believe in race. You haven't read much about it, have you? You haven't read much about it, have you?
Man, they're the problem. You hear that so often that you don't pause to consider what a change this is. It used to be only a few years ago that the one thing you couldn't do in America was attack people in public on the basis of their race. I don't like that group because of their skin color. Let's hurt them. You couldn't say that. It was the one unacceptable thing, and for very good reason. You cannot maintain a multiracial democracy unless people of every color have exactly the same rights and responsibilities under the law and are considered of precisely the same moral value under God.
Well, if the critical race theorists had their way, that's exactly what we would have, because race would no longer be a factor.
Exactly.
Tucker. And you know that, Tucker, but you know that your audience doesn't know that, Tucker. See how that works?
It's so crazy. I don't understand coming on and deceiving a group of people like that when literally deaths could come from this.
Deaths have come from it.
Yeah, but literally from what he's saying here, that he's pushing that forward more for there to be violence and for there to be, because already you have an entire group of people that feel like that they're the victim when they're not, they're the perpetrator. And so when that situation happens, they're liable to get violent because they feel like, like you said, they're losing their privilege and they feel like that's actually them getting persecuted.
Yeah. Here's Clinton.
He should speak the truth.
People have the right to declare themselves as a race, no matter how crazy it sounds. You can declare yourself whatever you'd like. The issue is not...
You just can't declare that your race is better than another race.
Well, here's the problem. When an individual does... This is the other thing about people on the right, is they consistently refuse to account for any form of collectivism when they're talking. So they'll say a person has the right to declare themselves a race. We're not talking about what a person is doing.
Yeah.
We're talking about the dominant group of people in this country and how they structured the country to make it so that they always end up on top, whether scientifically, legally, economically, educationally, healthcare, the whole nine. Clinton, that's what we're dealing with. We're not talking about some guy from Alabama that says, I'm white. Okay, good, you're white. That's not what we're talking about, though. So, Clint, deal with what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Deal with the facts of what we're talking about.
Right, senior.
The bully that cries the victims hurt their knuckles. Yeah, what's his face?
That really happened?
Chauvin had a scabbed knee after the altercation. What about him? Blue Lives Matter. We continue.
Have to have that. That's the most basic prerequisite for a multiracial democracy. All lives have to matter, or it can't.
Oh, all lives have to matter. You know what this is? This is Tucker really feeling the zeitgeist is changing in America, and he's terrified. Mm-hmm. All this is just fear. He's scared to death. and black people, a lot of the people that you are interpreting as hostile and mean, they're just terrified. Okay? Now, fear makes people do insane things, like the El Paso shooter. He explicitly said, look, these people are going to take over. He basically said, I can't compete with these people.
Right.
So he killed 20 of them to encourage them to leave America.
Yep.
Because he knows that if he has to compete at an even playing field, then things aren't going to go well. We continue.
Work. It's pretty clear that our leadership class, for whatever reason, doesn't want it to work. Obviously, they don't. Look at what they're doing. When you hear people ascribe blood guilt to a specific racial group, when you hear them talk about the sin of whiteness, what...
You see how he says a particular racial group and then he says whiteness back to back as if they're the same thing for CRT adherents? They're not. Mm-hmm. I'm just pointing out how many times this man is misleading you.
Wow.
What you're watching is the death of our future as a country.
There it is! I told you! When he says our, who do you think he's talking about? You think he's talking about me and Dorian? He knows. And you know who he's talking about. You know what he's saying. He's saying, look, man, if you let these people teach our kids this stuff and our kids believe this stuff, then our stranglehold of power in this country is going to go away. We're losing our country. What do those people say, the Tiki Torch people? You will not replace us.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, the great replacement. He's scared to death. Look at it. He's afraid. So here you are sitting here resenting this man. Don't resent this man. Pray for him. I know a lot of black people, it's very popular now, just be angry at people, blah, blah, blah. He's terrified. Listen, you can't necessarily attach a moral value to a person who sneezes when they have a cold. You see?
We can't live in a nation of warring tribes. We know very well what that looks like because it's the history of the world.
Right. But if we got rid of the concept of race, that would take something that's dividing us and put it to the side and unite us. Yep. Your concern, Mr. Carlson, is not about warring tribe. Your concern is the supremacy of yours.
It's miserable and vicious and bloody. We can't allow that.
We can't allow it. We cannot allow it. He's afraid.
Most Americans of all colors on some level understand this. They don't always have the words to articulate it, but they know it. When their kids come home from school with assignments to suggest that all races are not in fact equal, that some races are guilty and some are innocent, that some groups are...
Now look at Doug. Look what he does. This is what happens. Now that he knows that this entire segment is a lie and that he has been pushing out white supremacist propaganda by saying CRT adherents are racist when they're not because they don't believe in race. Mm-hmm. What does he do? Instead of saying, you know what, I was wrong. What does he do? Why do you take these activist theories' definition as sacrosanct? Because they made it up, Doug. Wow. You see what he's saying? Why are you taking what they have to say? First of all, I didn't take my definition of CRT from critical race theorists, Doug. I actually took it from Britannica, which is usually against my my methodology because I usually let groups define themselves. But I specifically chose Britannica because I knew that if it was a black person that said it, you were going to say that. So unless you want to say that the folks in Encyclopedia Britannica are part of the critical race theorist conspiracy, how about you just acknowledge, Doug, you were wrong. It's okay. You're not omniscient. You were wrong, Doug. You've been influenced by people like this. You didn't do your own research, and now here you are. Just admit it. It's okay. I've been wrong bunches of times. I was thoroughly propagandized about the Iraq War. Completely propagandized. And I've said it a million times. It's okay to be wrong. You're not God.
Mm-hmm. DeWalt, not that it matters, but all the time.
Unbelievable. Now here's Clinton. I'm not even going to post it. No, Clinton, it's not a social construct. It is a commentary on social constructs. We continue. Oh, my God.
Oppressors inherently, and others are inherently oppressed. In the universities, this is called critical race theory. So that's the term that most people go with. Critical race theory. That's what we so often debate on television. That's the clip we just showed you. But critical race...
Well, it's not being debated. A debate is when you have somebody from the a representative from the other side, and then you exchange ideas,
Right.
Tucker.
But you probably wouldn't want to do that because you've said so much in this segment that's untrue
Correct.
and is misleading.
You're
that,
blatantly misleading these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, DJ, you're completely responsible now because you've got the information.
Right.
So now you're completely responsible. But aside from that, all these other people have been completely misled by Mr. Tucker Carlson.
Theory is an inaccurate way to describe what's happening. Like so much academic jargon, the phrase critical race theory doesn't mean anything.
There it is!
It obscures rather than illuminates.
It doesn't mean anything. Now, why would he say that? You know why? Here's why. It's because of what I've been dealing with for the past 20 minutes with these folks, some of whom are my best friends in the channel, like DJ. Why is he telling people it has no definition and doesn't mean anything? You know why? Because that way you take his word for it and you are discouraged from doing your own research. Why would you do your own research on a topic when it doesn't mean anything and cannot be defined? You see what he's doing?
Jeez.
Brilliant!
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a regular viewer of Tucker Carlson, he goes out of his way. It's like Inception. You know, you plant these
seen
little
it a
ideas.
lot, too.
You plant these little ideas in people's heads, like in
Yes.
Inception.
Yeah.
That's all he's doing.
Oh my God.
He's trying to tell you there's no explicit definition of CRT so that you will never do any research on it for yourself and you'll remain ignorant and you'll say all the ignorant stuff that my friends have been saying for the last 20 minutes. He's trying to keep you in that situation. No, ladies and gentlemen, critical race theory has an obvious definition. We know where it came from. It was 1989. Here's Encyclopedia Britannica again. Critical race theory is an intellectual movement and loosely organized framework of legal analysis based on the premise that race is not a natural biologically grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups of human beings, but a socially constructed, culturally invented category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theorists hold that the law and legal institutions of the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between whites and non-whites, particularly African Americans. That is critical race theory. It's absolutely defined, and it's easily defined. But Tucker just lied to you again.
Wow.
Because he doesn't want you in the information age to get the information yourself. He wants you to stupidly sit in front of your TV and watch him. I'm not
Seriously?
saying you're stupid. I'm saying that's what he wants and that's what he expects of you.
All of these political channels that are geared certain directions and their goal is to lead you to believe certain things and to be with a certain party, it's going to have to phase out because people are going to become more with the use of the internet and YouTube and all like the different political channels that are popping off, and a lot of them are saying, look, they don't say exactly what you said, but more or less the same thing. They're trying to ascertain the truth here, and people are tired of being deceived and lied to like this. So all these channels need to go, and he needs to get a job, I don't know, doing something productive.
Tucker does not love America. He loves the position that he holds and the people in his family holds, but he doesn't love America because this is dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
We saw people killing each other in the streets last year over this nonsense. There's that one, that Democrat lady, she said something crazy. That's the Democrat lady. She doxed all those people.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She doxed it was a Republican lady. She doxed all those people. She was in a gated community, and so they rolled up on her, and there was those two white people that didn't know what's going on. All they see is this mob of people going rah. So they went outside with their weapons. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is white racism." Blah blah blah. It's like, what are you talking about? They're in a gated community. You see a bunch of people kicking down the gates. Of course, they're going to get their guns. They didn't know what's going on. But my point is, these media, these talking heads, they put regular Americans in these crazy situations to further their agenda when they know they're not going to... Tucker's not going to take this war to the streets.
Brian, when we finish the video, you're welcome to come on and school Vinny on this topic since he's so misinformed.
It is designed that way. It is designed to confuse you. What's happening in our schools and our military and our government is both simpler and easier to recognize than that. It's not critical race theory. It's racism, not neo-racism or reverse racism.
All
Those
this
are
is a lie.
meaningless terms.
This is all a
It
lie.
is race hate.
Meaningless terms.
It is peddled by the people in charge in the hope that it will make them more powerful. That's all it is.
No. You're projecting your ideology and methodology
Again.
onto them. They do.
Yeah.
I don't have to repeat it. When you hear that critical race theory is racism and race hate, you know immediately he's lying to you again. I don't know how many lies he's told in this little clip here, but they're legion.
Said that often enough or clearly enough. And because we haven't, because we've been tied up in some pointless debate about a concept that nobody can actually define.
Wow.
There it is.
Wow, he said it again.
Don't look it up. Don't look it up.
Nobody can define it.
Nobody
What's
can-
the use?
Don't look it up. Nobody can define it except for Tucker. He defined it as race hate. See? Did you catch that?
Oh my God, you're right.
Nobody can define it
It's
except for
race
me.
hate.
Except for me.
Oh my
So listen
God.
to me. No one can define it.
Wow, seriously, he's a very terrible person.
He's so cute. He doesn't like that. Miscegenation. We continue.
The race hate, and that's what it is, has oozed from the universities, and it has infected the entire country, including at the very highest levels. Mark Milley is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He didn't get that job because he's brilliant, or because he's brave, or because the people who know him respect him. He is not, and they definitely don't. Milley got the job because he is obsequious. He knows who to suck up to, and he's more than happy to do it.
Oh. Well, who is this fella? He's not brave.
Oh no.
I mean, he's dressed up in all this military regalia, but that
Seeing
doesn't
like a lot of patches.
that
on
doesn't mean he's
suit
brave.
there.
He's not brave. He's not a good anything.
Okay.
He's whatever.
He's either extremely brave, or he is the biggest suck up there ever was, because he'd have to suck up to every one of those badges, right?
Here is this man's.
Oh my goodness.
You got
He's
the
a Ranger and Special Forces?
Well, yeah, he was a Green Beret. He went to Indoc, went to Ranger School, and then he became a Green Beret. Let's look at it again. Let's see. He's got Defense Distinguished Service Medal, Legion of Merit, Army Commendation Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Humanitarian Service Medal, Army Distinguished Service Medal, Bronze Star Medal. We're going to go back to Bronze Star in a second. Army Achievement Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Army Service Medal, Defense Superior Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, National Defense Service Medal with a Service Star, Iraq Campaign Medal, Korea Defense Medal, Army Overseas Service Ribbon. By the way, the vast majority of these engagements and conflicts have to do with American superiority. So I'm not necessarily a fan of all of these, medals and such. But let's just be real here. Here's the Bronze Star. The Bronze Star Medal is the United States Armed Forces decoration awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces for either heroic achievement, heroic service, meritorious achievement, or meritorious service in a combat zone.
Well, there's some people in the chat are like, well, that's not very impressive. Please show us your your list of accomplishments.
Donald, I will, hey, listen, everybody get me this, James Lindsay. Reach out to him. I'll bring him on the show. I have no problem with that.
Absolutely.
I have
Thanks
no
for
problem
the
with
super
that.
chat, Donald.
Bring him to the show.
Is that Captain Underpants?
I don't know.
Oh.
So that is the man's credentials. That is the man's credentials. Here's Tucker Carlson saying, "Oh, he's not brave. He's not. He's a. You know, he just sucks up to people. He's not brave. Nobody respects him." Here are Tucker Carlson's. By the way.
Oh gosh.
By contrast, here are Tucker Carlson's military exploits and accomplishments.
Stop it, babe! Oh, that's so bad. That's so bad.
You must be so embarrassed!
Oh boy.
Impressive.
Impressive.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, we had to settle for the Green Beret Ranger guy with 45 years of military experience and multiple deployments and combat. We had to settle for that guy. We could have had Tucker Carlson.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Leaders.
Theory.
All right.
Acceptable. That's what we so often debate on television. That's the clip we just showed you. But it is peddled by him, respect him. He is not, and they definitely don't. Milley got the job because he is obsequious. He knows who to suck up to, and he's more than happy to do it. Feed him a script, and he will read it. Here's Milley yesterday, the man in charge of this nation's weapons, explaining that he's working to understand a concept called white rage.
I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out.
That's a good question. You know what's funny? I asked one of my buddies, I won't name him, but I said he was good with the fact that there wasn't going to be a 1/6 commission to investigate what happened. And I said, really? So if it would have been
wait, they're not investigating what happened?
Nope. Close case. We're just gonna move on.
Come on.
Oh yeah. So
that's all we need to know.
So this person, he said, it's done. We don't need to look at it.
Oh, that's such bullshit. Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. He was serious too. And I said, wait a second. If this was Obama and it was Jabhat al-Nusra and a bunch of brown people who stormed the Capitol, are you saying you wouldn't want, and they had gallows and they were talking about executing people?
Wow.
You wouldn't want to know what happened? You know what he said to me?
What?
He said, I'm not going to answer that question.
Yeah, of course he's not. At least he didn't say it was a stupid question.
He said, I'm not going to answer that question.
Oh, come on.
Listen, anytime you do that, you've answered the question.
Yeah, of course you have.
I want to know, too. A lot of people want to know what happened in 1/6, but for some reason, we don't know. And what's DJ's response to that? China and Russia are laughing at us. Unbelievable. We continue.
Maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what he's saying is, actually, the military, we're a university. What he's saying is, we're not just dumb idiots who have walk around with 16s and shoot people. We're intelligent people.
Yeah.
We're a university. We have to think. We've got to expose ourselves to all different kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
Because we have a multitude of people that make up our military and the Coast Guard. That sounds very rational.
Yeah.
How does he respond?
Hard to believe that man wears a uniform.
Hard to believe the guy wears a uniform. What, are we just supposed to have dumb knuckle draggers who can't read? Is that what you want? That's what you want in the military? Idiots who don't read? Or, Tucker, do you want people like you assume your audience are who will not research what you're saying and expose your lies?
This is crazy. He's gaslighting his whole audience.
Oh, yeah.
He literally played the clip.
Oh, yeah.
And then he says something completely opposite.
Oh, I know.
Everything that guy said was 100% rational.
100%.
Was he saying, look, the people that are going to be in our military come from the general population. So we need to know what the general population is thinking before we put them in that position. That's completely rational. That makes sense. That's safe.
It makes a lot of sense.
And then he says it's hard to believe anybody respects this guy.
Hard to believe. What did he say that was crazy? He said, I want to know white rage. So do I.
Okay. We also want to know why all those people showed up at the state building there. I mean, hello.
Hey, I did not say this, okay? This is Amy Lee from the band, okay? White supremacy is laughable because it consists of the lowest class of whites. Period! I didn't say that. That's a white lady that said that. I didn't say it. We continue. Tucker Carlson.
Unimpressive. Notice he never defined white rage, and we should know what it is. What is white rage?
Well, white rage is very simple. 1/6 is a good example. Your guy lost, and so they concocted this strange conspiracy theory that was refuted by the Supreme Court, 3 of whom were direct Trump appointees. Tucker. I asked one of my friends that because he was doing the election conspiracy stuff. And if you remember, when I was covering it, I said, I wouldn't be surprised if something came out, considering how the DNC does its business. But the fact of the matter is we have no evidence of this supposed corruption. And the Supreme Court of the United States completely dismissed Bush. Amy Coney Barrett and all those folks were like, nah, bro. They looked at it, they looked at it like for 14 seconds. It was like, nah, man. And you put them in place. This is the irrationality of not every Trump follower, just the people, just the 1/6 type Trump followers, right? We got to be nuanced. Mm-hmm. That's the mindset. There is nothing that can ever show them that they're wrong. Nothing. It's like the guy who he kept telling his family he was an android. They're like, you're not an android, you're a human being. He's like, no, I'm an android. And they tried everything, they couldn't do it. Then they took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, do androids bleed? And the guy said, no, only humans bleed. And the doctor smiled, and he looked at the family, and he said, everything's gonna be okay. Then he took out a scalpel and he sliced the guy's arm. All this blood starts coming out, and then the doctor says, you're bleeding. And the guy looks at the doctor and says, I was wrong. And the family, people start crying. Oh my gosh. And the guy goes, androids do bleed. That's the 1/6 Trumper. Tucker, white rage is when your guy doesn't win, and then you stage an insurrection to overthrow our country and the Constitution of the United States of America. That's how you handled not being able to win. You know, we were playing ball out there.
Now we're not going to look into it.
We're playing ball out there at Tall. And this it was a very, very close game. You know those back and forths, you got to win by 2. Mm-hmm. And my man Lee Ben, shout out to Lee Ben, he got a steal. He passed it off to Abdul. Abdul hits a 3 right in the white kid's face. And you know how it is. So dudes are like, yeah, boy, yeah. This dude went off and hit Abdul. Well, Abdullahi has like 9 brothers. So I had to grab the homie, put him in the car, and get out of there. I said, you can never come back here again. That dude's gonna kill you. Yeah, he couldn't take the loss very well. He didn't take the loss. He didn't take the loss very well. We continue. See. Now here's Jay Rocca. I did not say all Trump voters were white, bro. But you and I both know the people that stormed on 1/6, and I explicitly went out of my way to say not all Trump supporters, the 1/6 Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. There were like 5 black people in that insurrection, because black people know if we ever try something like that, boom, boom. We continue.
Well, like drapetomania, it's one of those diseases that only affect people with certain melanin levels. It's a race-specific illness. That's what Mark Milley has learned from reading about it. That's why he's making his soldiers read about it too. They need to know. Watch.
Yeah, they do need to know.
Of course they do.
I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke.
Okay, that was Matt Gaetz, who was upset, not for policy changes, but just the fact that people are reading. Our military isn't supposed to read. Just shoot people.
How dare they educate themselves?
Just shoot people.
Oh my gosh.
That's what Matt Gaetz, by the way.
Wow.
I'm not even going to talk about Matt Gaetz's issues. We've got a policy. We're not going to drag out people's personal whatever. All I'm going to say is that's dangerous. You know, in the Islamic tradition, al-Talib, there were soldier scholars. Mm-hmm. So like the highest person you could be in during the time of Muhammad was a student and a soldier. Mm. And so that's the entire concept of the Taliban. The
Oh,
Taliban
really?
are a group of people who are student soldiers. So all they do all day is practice jihad and learn. And it's not just Islamic;
Which
it's
words
everything.
mean soldier, tali or ban?
Huh? Tali is basically somebody who is a person who's he's a student of knowledge, is what they're called. So al-talib, they're students of knowledge, I believe, is the Arabic term. So that was the pinnacle, but and that's how they took over the world. Is you know, like for example, there was a battle. It's Khandaq. It's called the Battle of the Trench, and trench warfare was something that the Arabs were not familiar. Muhammad wasn't familiar with, and there was a confederacy about 5 nations that were coming against them. They were done, and one of their guys, who used to hang out with the Jewish guys, said, "Hey, we've got this idea for trench warfare. What do you think?" And sure enough, that's how they won the battle. They were surrounded by 5 people. Only like 1 guy died.
Oh.
So there's a tradition in Islamic ideology about being your most educated people should be your warrior class. But apparently Tucker doesn't have that that ideology. And neither does Matt Gaetz. We should just be dumb, and just point and click and tell them where to shoot, and that'll be enough.
Well, that makes it easy, right?
He's not just a pig, he's stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, listen. Here's the thing that gets me about this.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing that gets me about this. This man is saying we should read. We should read and educate ourselves. What is wrong with reading and educating ourselves? Tucker comes back and say, not only is he a pig, he's stupid. Listen, isn't Fox News supposed to be the back the blue, we love America, we support the troops? Do you see the pattern? What happened to the police when they tried to intercept those crazy people on 1-6? They started beating them. And now, because this guy has the audacity to say maybe these CRT people aren't completely wrong, and I've read all these people and I want to educate my folks, now he's a pig. But when Colin Kaepernick called cops pigs, he hated America. Now he's dumb. But when people insult cops or soldiers, you go, oh, you hate America. So Tucker, you must hate America then. You see, these people, these racist people, I'm not saying everybody that listens to Tucker is a racist, but Tucker's obviously a racist. The only purpose that the police and the military has is furthering white supremacy. And the second that they come and cross purposes with that, they will flip on them. Listen, if you're a cop or a soldier and you think that these people back you, they back you as long as you're pushing forward their white supremacist agenda. The minute you deviate from that, they're going to call you a pig and kill you. You got these silly people. Oh, Sicknick died of a stroke. He didn't die because they beat him in the head. So you think he got that stroke by natural causes? You think if he was in a McDonald's on 1-6 during that time period that he would have died the same way? These people will flip on you. They will flip on you immediately the minute that you're not promoting white supremacy. They'll kill you.
So Mark Milley reads Mao to understand Maoism. He reads communist to understand communism. But it's interesting that he doesn't read white supremacists to understand white supremacy.
What is wrong with him?
Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Well, go ahead.
Well, if I understand him correctly, you have to talk to the victims in the situation because the perpetrators a lot of times don't even see that what they're doing is wrong. So he's saying that they should go to white supremacists and ask them about what it is.
Well,
is that what he's saying?
Well, it's the whole the pseudo. What about me? What about me? Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, you're reading Mao, you're reading all these people. Well, what about us? And if you don't read about us, then come on. So here we go. So now he's saying that this guy needs to read white supremacists. Why? Because he was talking about reading CRT. So what's the analogy? The analogy is if you read CRT, that's black supremacy. So to cancel, you should have white supremacy. But CRT adherents don't believe in black supremacy. They don't even believe in blackness. Tucker. I mean, I I don't understand this stuff. I do not understand this stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever how anybody with a thinking mind could know the facts and see this as an argument. I do not get it.
Unbelievable.
I don't get it. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to say. All right. So, look, guys, that's where we are. Did you have anything else to say about Tucker Carlson?
No. I just think that if you like Tucker Carlson, when you watch his stuff, you have to make sure that you're researching what he's saying to you, because clearly just in this one clip, we have found so many lies and misinformation and just deception.
Purposeful.
That, yeah, it's obviously purposeful.
Yeah.
Like, he's reading stuff and then leaves the ending of it out. He's just twisting everything around. This is tragic. I am so... I can't believe this. And I'm so bothered by the fact that they're not looking into what happened at the Capitol. That's just unbelievable.
Well, yeah. But, look, we know why. Everybody knows why. That's why my friend wouldn't answer my question. He knows why. He knows. Let's play some trivia, because he's saying, how come you don't read stuff from white supremacists? That's okay. Let's go with it.
Yeah.
I should have done guess who this is. I
It
am
says
not,
it right there.
nor ever been in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races. I am not, nor have ever been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. And I will say, in addition to this, that there is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races from living together in terms of social and political equality. And inasmuch as they cannot so live while they do remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior, and I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race, end quote. That, Tucker, was Abraham Lincoln. That was the best that time period produced. Abraham Lincoln, who explicitly
You mean
said...
the one that everybody always says, free the slaves?
Correct.
Oh my goodness.
He explicitly stated that there are physical differences in the races, and that there's an ontological difference between the races, and that the whites are superior to blacks. And did you notice when he said physical differences between the races, etc., where do you think he got that idea from? Samuel Morton and not critical race theory, sorry, but Samuel Morton and scientific racism explicitly said that. Tucker, so when you say, did he read white supremacist? Yes, because, and all kids who learn anything about American history, if they ever read something from George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, etc., are reading the material of white supremacists. So that can answer that question. We've been studying. Why do you think I don't send my black children to public school? That system wasn't built for us. Ridiculous. The Frankfurt School, known more appropriately as critical theory, is philosophical and sociological movement spread across many universities around the world. It began CRT, time and place to interview Lindsay. Whatever. Bring him on. Bring him on. I mean, you got my number, so we'll talk later. We'll set it up. We continue. So we've always been reading from white supremacists, Tucker. We've always been reading white supremacists.
Why not go to the source? Well,
we just did. Anytime I'm sure he's read Lincoln. I'm sure he's read Bush. Well, Bush is probably one, although we don't have any information on it. Washington. Anybody, he's read white supremacists. Believe me.
Because Mark Milley would be fired instantly if he read those books, and getting fired is the one thing he doesn't want.
That's a lie. He wouldn't get fired. He'd probably get a pat on the back. So he's read white supremacists. So have you, Tucker.
So he reads about white rage as if it's totally real. It's a medical condition.
I don't think it's a medical condition, but it's definitely real. We're seeing it now. We're seeing it with you. Mm-hmm. You're obviously angry at this guy, who's 50 times more of a man than you, just by any objective measure.
Oh, no.
And by the way, Since it's a medical condition, at what age can you catch white rage, by the way?
Oh my gosh.
Most
Oh
of us
my
assumed that our
goodness.
2-year-olds were just teething. Now we know it's their whiteness that's making them so angry. Thanks, Mark Milley. We appreciate your contribution to our generation's scientific racism.
No, our 2-year-olds go crazy because they're sinners. They're born with original sin, and it's our duty as parents to shape them. But you're acting like a 2-year-old right now. You called it, you stupid piggy head.
Wait, have you read
Probably
anything
doesn't
recently
know
about
that even
winning
black
wars?
children
Apparently
teeth.
not. We could go on and on and on. Pundit after senator after professor after general, each one of them spewing race hate. Whiteness, white rage, dressed up as some new academic theory. We certainly have the tape. We'll spare you because you've seen it. It's everywhere. The question is, and this is the question that we should be meditating on day in and day out, is how do we get out of this vortex, this cycle, before it's too late? How do we...
Too late for what, Tucker?
Wow.
Too late for
crazy.
what?
Yeah, answer the question.
What will happen, Tucker? What will happen if there isn't a 19.4% variance in sentencing between black men and white men for similarly situated crimes? What would happen, Tucker, if there was not a 16.9% differentiation in government-sponsored declination rates between white men and black men in similarly situated crimes? What if there wasn't a 3.74 times more chance that you will get locked up for petty crimes like weed as a black man than a white man? What are the odds of that? What are the odds, Tucker? What would happen to our country, Tucker, if education was more equally distributed as far as funds go? So where you got black kids that don't even have a word processing machines, but you have white schools that are plugged directly into Dow Jones and all the rest of it. What would happen if the black kids were able to get plugged into Dow Jones when they were in high school? What would happen? This is all about competition and the fact that Tucker is afraid of America, in which his children will have to compete with my children, and he should be, because he'll lose.
save this?
I'm not mad at Tucker for any of this, by the way. I'm not everybody is a Christian. Okay? So his religion is obviously the supremacy of his folks and all the rest of it. I'm not mad at him. Okay, this is 2021. I would be mad at him if this was like 10 years ago and his audience just, But now, if you're believing this stuff, you're responsible. So I'm not mad at Tucker Carlson. He's doing what he's coming out and telling you, look, this is who I am. I'm about my folks, and I'm about making sure my folks are superior, and I want to make sure that my kids don't have to compete with your kids. And I want to structure society. I want society structured this way continually.
Does he call himself a Christian?
Oh, I'm sure
Or
he
is
does.
Ben just trolling?
I'm sure he does. Now look, here's Doug. Vin with your racist self. I might be. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. We continue.
Country before we become Rwanda.
Whoa!
What should we be teaching our...
Rwanda!
Said Rwanda! Wow. You just bringing up all these fear tactics.
On the one hand, it's funny, but on the other hand, the average person that watches Tucker Carlson remembers Rwanda. Rwanda was a genocide, right? Where people were literally getting hacked in the street on TV. I remember watching it. And we didn't get involved. Somalia had happened. Okay, so there was a lot of public resentments against any sort of humanitarian intervention from America to African countries. Understandably so, considering what happened. I mean, dudes were getting dragged in the streets, all the rest of it. Rest in peace to all those guys that died that day. So, Rwanda. So let me get this straight. If your kid learns that there's no such thing as race, and that the founding fathers were completely racist, and so because they were racist, the institutions and systems that they created were all stained with racism, and so we've got to reverse engineer that so that we can have equity in our country. If they learn that, America is going to turn into Rwanda. No, it isn't. America is going to finally be able to live the ambition of the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, which is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed with certain inalienable rights given to them by their creator.
Yep.
Tucker, how in the world could you write something like that and own a slave? Very simple. The science tells us that the black people look like us, but they're not. They're a little segment below us. So Tucker, if your kids and your kids' kids start seeing me and my kids as equals, that's what you're afraid of. You know good and well ain't no Rwanda gonna happen here. What a ridiculous thing to say. White people are 85% of this country, Tucker.
Exactly. It's like
If every black person on the planet, you know, during the whole situation, Malcolm X and all that jazz, they killed one of us. So Malcolm got the guns. He was ready to go. He's like, okay, word. So Malcolm, he got all those guns. He was ready to fight. And Elijah Muhammad said, stop. Malcolm said, come on. They just killed one of us in broad daylight. See, Malcolm was ready to die. Mm-hmm. He's willing to die over this stuff. See, when you run into somebody that's not afraid of dying, so Malcolm was ready to go. He was ready to go to war. And Elijah Muhammad stopped him. And that was the beginnings of the fracture. Tucker, Rwanda's not going to happen in America with black people and white people. You're 85% of the country. There's not going. You want Rwanda. You would like a civil war, Tucker. And you are bringing up all of these crazy, insane pictures to your millions of constituents because you know that 2 or 3 of them are going to activate that BS. You know that. It's the same thing with Trump when he was saying, oh, these people are invading our country. They're invading our country. They're invading our country. And then that psychopath went out and killed those beautiful Jewish people because they had the audacity to send food and other medical supplies to the border because their Torah tells them to love their neighbor and that they were supposed to be a blessing to all the world. So there they are trying to bless the world. And one of your folks, Tucker, who watches you religiously, I'm sure, went over there and blew that guy away. And all Trump was saying was invaders. Now you're bringing up Rwanda? And you watch this stuff, you're okay with this? This dude's going to get people killed. And he knows it. But he'd much rather that. They'd much rather that than the other thing. Go ahead, Don. Tell me. Don is a friend of mine. Tell me how I'm putting words in Tucker's mouth. He brought up Rwanda. We all know what Rwanda was. So explain to me how I'm putting words in Tucker's mouth. It's cool. Like, we're friends. Let's talk about it. We continue. And don't worry about defending Tucker. I mean, if that's your guy, it's your guy. It's all good. We continue. Rwanda.
Children so they can live in the country that you want to live in. A country full of many different kinds of people, many different, but who actually like each other, who are happy to work together, who are united ultimately by the core fact, which is they're all Americans. That is the question.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Well, I agree. I agree, Tucker. I agree. That's the type of country I want. That is definitely the type of country I want. Mm-hmm. But you obviously don't. If you did, not that you would agree with me. If you did, you tell the truth. You'd source what you're saying. Mm-hmm. That's what you would do. And you would encourage your constituents to educate themselves. And learn, if that's what you wanted. But you're specifically going out of your way to tell your people not to do the research, and you're specifically and purposefully lying to your audience to gin up the ratings for your organization, as well as you would. I'm pretty certain he would like to see some of these people get activated because it would discourage. That's what the El Paso shooter said. He said he was going to kill those people because he wanted to discourage Mexicans from coming over. Legally, by the way. It was really interesting reading the El Paso shooter because he wasn't worried so much about illegal immigrants. He was worried about legal, skilled immigrants who he would have to compete with. Mm-hmm. That's who he was worried about.
Yep.
Tucker's my guy. I've never heard him state he believes in white superiority. That's an implied position. I agree. That's an implication that I'm drawing from Tucker. And the reason I'm drawing that implication, bro, is because he quoted something purposely out of context. He quoted something and said, these people want to abolish whiteness, when in the article, they explain explicitly what they meant about abolishing whiteness. I don't know if you've been here from the beginning of the stream, but watch the beginning of the stream again. You'll see exactly what I was talking about. He specifically set that up to enrage his listeners and make them think that all your kids are being taught that white people need to be murdered in the streets. So the article was, we need to abolish whiteness. And here is what the folks said. They said, we expected bewilderment from people who still think of race as biology because critical race theorists do not believe that race is a biological and genetic reality. They believe it is a cultural reality that was invented by Europeans and their descendants, right? So we frequently get letters accusing us of being racist, just like the KKK, or even being called a hate group. Our standard response is to draw an analogy with anti-royalism, namely, to oppose monarchy does not mean the killing of the king. It means getting rid of crowns, thrones, royalties, etc.
Boom.
End quote.
Boom. Right there.
So that he quoted the title of the article. Title of the article is "We Need to Abolish Whiteness," which for a critical race theorist means we need to abolish the code that says whites are superior and blacks are inferior. Mm-hmm. So, like Clinton said after that, oh, we should abolish blackness. Yes, we should abolish blackness. I agree. From the vantage point of what CRT is trying to communicate, yes. So I am absolutely taking implications from Tucker Carlson, but the reason I'm taking those implications is because I believe that he's intelligent. If I thought he was dumb, then I'd say, well, maybe he just made a mistake. But he purposely crafted and framed this entire segment with the assumption that the folks that listen to him aren't going to fact check him and easily find out how much of a liar he was in this particular segment.
It's so crazy because when I was in school, they had taught us that you had to cite everything. Anything that you quoted, you had to cite it at the end. And so in his description of this video, there should be links to all the stuff that he's talking about.
Correct.
But I didn't think when I was a kid that it was really that important. I'm like, who cares? Who cares where it came from? Like, obviously the person's not going to write a book and lie.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, man, look, you know, I meant Tucker is not my guy. Look, and this is probably my own fault. I'm not saying that anybody who likes or listens to Tucker Carlson is a horrible, evil, terrible person. So nobody has to be like, I don't really like Tucker. What I'm saying is, it's clear here. You just have to listen to him with caution, and you just have to understand that he's being very purposeful and there's some agenda. Now, Don, if you don't think it's white supremacy, cool. But he's got some other agenda other than just telling his folks the truth, because he explicitly lied to them and then planted seeds to discourage them from looking up the information for themselves. So I hear you, bro. That's the only conclusion I could come to based on what he said. But you definitely have a point for sure. All right. Good Lord. Tucker. So look, white, black, purple, red, orange, green. You're an American. I'm down with you. Love you. It's great. You're my neighbor. I love you. If you're my enemy, I love you. And you're watching this stuff. There is a space for righteous anger, but the scripture says, "Don't let the sun get down."
Oh my goodness, Ben! No, we are not saying that you abolish cultures. There can be different cultures. You're abolishing the notion that one race is better than another race. We are all the human race, and within the human race, we have different cultures. And so you can celebrate the other cultures, but you're not better than another culture because you have a certain culture. So we're trying to make it so, hey, we're not just all Americans, we're all one race. And we work out from there. That's what we're talking about. We're not saying anything about abolishing cultures and making the world a bland place.
Yeah, what we're talking about is abolishing the concept of a stratified America by race. That's what that's what CRT adherents are trying to do.
Right.
And the people who are at the top of the current stratified seats in Laban that we're in do not want that to change. And that's why I said I'm not mad at him, because I understand. If you're powerful, you want to remain powerful. That's just human nature. So I get what he's doing. He's just wrong. That's all. Okay. And then here's DeWalt. This is DeWalt. I'm not even. This is the guy. No, this is the guy that when George Floyd's daughter was talking about how she missed her dad, he said he's been drug free for a year. You're not racist, DeWalt. You're just an evil person who's obviously a very wounded individual. You can say that to an 8-year-old girl talking about missing her father, and all you can say is he's been drug free for a year. Haha. You're evil. But as I said in the previous,
he's been dead for a year?
Yeah. As I said in the previous stream,
It
DeWalt.
literally took me quite a bit to
Yeah, I
even
know.
process that somebody would say something so evil.
You're just so good. I know it takes time, but I'm not as good of a person as you.
Jesus,
So,
DeWalt.
so
And
I-
how are you
so I
coming
knew what
on
he said.
here, acting on your high horse, asking us if we're giving to the homeless when you're saying things like that? That's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty evil, but and that I brought a spiritual component to it. Satan wants you to react to a guy like DeWalt in a very angry way, when in reality, he's been his mind has been completely subsumed by the enemy of his own soul. So why would you be angry at him? Yes, what he said was hurtful and terrible. Why would you be angry? Shouldn't you pray for him? He's obviously not in right relationship with God. He's saying something like that. Mm-hmm. So, look, it's unavoidable. There's a spiritual component to this. These people need prayer, and they're full of fear. You saw Tucker. He's terrified. And the scriptures say there's no love in there's no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear, because fear has to do with torment. And the one the one who fears has not been perfected in love. So you can't sit there and be so angry about it. And you can't sit there and hate these people. Trust me. It's much better to love people than to hate them. They got the therapeutic theology, and it's this theory that all of Jesus's commands are for your mental health. Mm-hmm. So when Jesus tells you to love your enemy, that's the best thing for your mental health.
Yeah.
So the devil wants me to hate DeWalt for all the evil things that he said, and he wants me to hate white people. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, because you're trying to enslave me, devil. Not today, Satan. So I'm going to love him. And yeah, I got friends that are racist. So I also have friends that believe they can kill babies. And I was completely fine with killing Iraqi children, 10 years ago or whatever. So I'm not going to sit here and put myself above people. I was cool with killing Iraqi people. Well, that's not right. I was wrong. But God was gracious to me and didn't annihilate me and zap me from the planet when I was saying all that crazy nonsense and contributing to the suffering of many people that had done nothing to me. So I can't sit here and judge this guy. Now we can judge the content of what he said. It's evil, of course. But all of us are evil. It just depends on what story you're looking at the given time. Anyway, shout out to DeWalt. God bless him. Shout out to all my racist friends. You know who you are. God bless you. And the last thing I want to leave you with is something that Don said, because it's very, very important. He said, where did it go? You have to listen to everyone, all caps, with caution, right or left. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Because all of last year, these left-wing people, left-wing media, I'm saying left-wing because all my, Ben's going to say, they're not really leftists. Okay, whatever. But he's right. Because these people had us believing that Trump was the Antichrist and all the rest of it. Yeah. And that, what's her name? Biden and Kamala were going to help us. And there's still kids in cages, by the way. That's still happening. So, yeah. You got to make sure you listen to everyone, because all these people are trying to propagandize you. I hope you understand that Tucker Carlson is a millionaire in the media, and Rachel Maddow is also a multimillionaire in the media. They have more. Don't you realize that Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow have more in common with each other than they do with you? Left or right? Left or right? They have more in common. These people in the media, these multimillionaires, and I'm not mad at them for being millionaires, by the way. But they have more in common with each other than they do with you or me, bro. They're not on our team, and that's what Don's saying. You got to listen to everybody with caution. All these people have an agenda. All of them.
Pray for the kids in cages, please. Everybody, send good thoughts if that's what you do. Prayers, all of that stuff for these kids that are separated from their parents and that trauma that they must be experiencing. Shoot, we come up here to shoot a video, and by the time I go back downstairs, little Orion's, Mommy! And running over to me. I can't imagine being separated from my child like that, and that's happening. But we know it's happening. So pray for the parents, pray for the kids, pray for their safety, for their mental well-being, their hearts. It's just a horrible thing over there. That's just terrible.
Really terrible. Sad stuff. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on DeSantis wanting Florida schools to teach the evils of communism? I mean, I don't care what DeSantis does. Look, the school system is not a system that was designed for me or my folks. And when I say my folks, I'm not just talking about, African descended people. I'm also talking about Christian people and people with certain values. Mm-hmm. That institution is not designed for us. So I just have a hard time paying attention to or caring about what people are being taught in school.
Yeah.
So as long as we teach the evils of capitalism. Yeah, I mean, when they're teaching the evils of capitalism, they can quote Dr. Martin Luther King. Last thing about this Marxist stuff. Abraham Lincoln and Marx were actually pen pals. Marx is actually one of the first people to congratulate Abraham Lincoln after the Emancipation Proclamation. We all know that Dr. King read Marx extensively. You know who else read Marx? Nelson Mandela. I was in the car with the kids, and I was explaining to them what happened in South Africa, and I was explaining Nelson and Winnie Mandela.
Yeah. And
they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, he spent 20 years in prison. These folks came in there, just completely they colonized the place. It was terrible. And we had to fight, and we got our liberation over there in South Africa. That's what we do. And so Dorian's like, okay, that Mandela, he's a cool dude. I'm like, you know who really influenced him? He goes, who? I said, Marx. Dorian goes, no!
Oh yeah, that's right. You don't know.
No! So you got Abraham Lincoln, Marxist. We got I don't think Abraham Lincoln was a Marxist, but according to Tucker Carlson, if you say we're Marxists and read one little sliver of Marx, all of a sudden now you're a Marxist. So Abraham Lincoln's a Marxist. Mandela was a Marxist. Dr. King was a Marxist. And now people who are taken to the streets, now they're all Marxists. They're horrible, horrible people. Look, I'll say this about DeSantis. DeSantis, you could do because I know you're listening right now, bro. Listen, DeSantis, you can do a evils of communism / Marxism as long as you educate your students that literally every movement in America to liberate black people, as well as globally with South America, every single one of those people was influenced by Marx. Every single one of them. Abraham Lincoln, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, etc., including Malcolm. So if you're good, if you're going to teach that, cool. Now, how much you want to bet he's not going to teach the kids that? How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet that he's not going to teach kids in school that? I'll bet my firstborn that he's not going to teach his kids the truth. All right. Having said that, we got to go. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Oh, by the way, we're if you know about the other channel, we're going to be jumping right to the other channel like in the next 10 minutes. Okay?
Which means 35 or 40.
Inshallah.